The old days are gone and they're never coming back. If you're waiting for your next opportunity to come from a company who's out there looking for someone like you to offer you a role, you're already in trouble. But if you believe that your future hinges upon your ability to create value, to offer it to the market, and find the people who need it most, then the Forge Genesis is for you. Click the link in the show notes below to find out more. Cohort starting soon. My friend, thank you for joining as always. Today I have a very special guest, my friend Dave Borzillo, who I've known since he was part of Forge Genesis, has got himself a brand new book, Sanity at Scale, How Engineering Leaders Move from Heroic Firefighting to Systemic Excellence. In the age that we live in, Agile is something where I feel now we're always trying to figure out what went wrong so we can figure out where to go next. Learn what we did incorrectly so we can do it better in the future. And that's what this book helps with. So I'm welcoming Dave Borzillo.
Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams.
Dave, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you so much for the invitation.
No problem. Thank you very much for being here. It's great to see you. And I want to say, first of all, I'm proud of you for writing this book. And I really enjoyed reading this book. I thought it was really well done. You've been talking about it for a little while, and I think you did an awesome job on it. So with that said,
thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about how you came to write this book and what it means to you and why this particular topic. Like, I'm always curious, what happened that made you say, we got to talk about, in this case, heroes in the Agile space and how it's doing us more harm than good? How did you get there?
You know, it's hard to believe that my career has now spanned 3 decades. And I was thinking back, and much earlier in my career, I was the one who would wake up at 4 a.m. and would take it upon myself to fix, issues in production. I don't want to wake up my team. I'll take care of it. And my team were heroes as well. I don't want to make it sound like, I did everything. My team would be running at 100%. Backlogs were bursting. And we tried to make everything look green, but deep down inside, we kind of knew we were struggling. And these were, you're talking about between .com and where we're at now, right? So that gap between being busy and being useful is what I started to reflect on and saying, I think I've got a book here that can help people. Because even with AI, I'm going on the forums, I'm reading stories. People are struggling with the same thing. So that's what helped me to write this book.
So I want you to tell us, for those who are not familiar with the term, what does hero mean, or what does heroism mean in the context of an Agile team? And why is it not as great as you might think it is?
Right. I define heroism as, you're constantly putting in that extra effort. You're the guy or gal that's standing up and saying, I got this. And you're coming to the rescue. And so that is a good thing. And we do need that. And I have an introduction written by a fractional CIO that makes the case that I'm not saying don't be a high performer. But when it starts cutting into your time with family and friends and cutting time into weekends, when you're skipping important events, again, many, many years ago, I got caught up on this, and I was even out of town for anniversary one year with my wife. And that's something I've regretted to this day.
Did she ever let you forget it?
Yeah, no, she's really good about it. So what this does is it kind of creates this loop, and it starts like this. The system fails. The hero burns personal capital to fix it. The crisis is averted, right? That's a good thing. And the hero is praised, rightfully so, but the root cause is never investigated. So repeat this often enough, and you don't have an organization that can withstand other fires are going to pop up. You have an organization running on a few exhausted people. Sometimes they're setting themselves on fire, right?
Absolutely. And the biggest negative that comes from that is, you said, well, there's two really. One, we never get to the root cause of why are things malfunctioning in the first place. If there's someone who's always willing to pick up the slack, if there's someone who's always willing to work the weekend to come and fix it, we don't actually have to address what's wrong in the first place. And then by extension, we get into that one person or small group of people start burning out because that's not sustainable. So
Yes, it masks the rot. It creates single points of failure.
There you go. Now, you mentioned something in the book that I call process overhead. You call it the machine of slow. What does that mean? How's it affecting companies and teams? And I think a lot of Agile people out there will hear this and they'll immediately understand what you're talking about.
Right. So bureaucracy usually starts as a reaction to something that happened. And that's totally acceptable, right? Oh, we had this production issue. We had this major issue that, hurt the customer. But then it kind of comes to where we create these rules. These rules compound over time. And what's the net effect of all this? People will optimize their work for the letter of the rule instead of the spirit. And so this is where we want everything to look green, and the pride and the project quietly is on fire underneath. We talk about watermelon project status, right? Everything is green until it turns red.
Now, you mentioned too some famous CEOs. I always like to say that if you want to see people do Agile well, look to people for whom technology and software are somehow on the profit side. They're on the, this is what we do, this is what we sell. If you look at a bank or an insurance company, tech is important, but it's an expense. It's something that they kind of have to pay for in order to make what they make. Whereas a technology-centered company will probably value true agility more because their livelihood depends on being able to get product out to the market. If that's true, we can look to certain tech companies and look at how they do agility. And you refer specifically to Elon Musk and Tesla. I believe it was Tesla anyway, as opposed to SpaceX. Did you talk about his, if you like, policy of subtraction to control that process bloat? Why do you think that is so hard to do? Why can't we all just be more simple and deprioritize the unimportant, stop doing things that don't matter so that we don't need heroes at all?
I think what it comes down to is we're highly skilled, highly competent, highly technical people. And when we're being asked to come up with a design, when we're being asked to come up with a solution, we want to make everything future-proof and we want to make everything bulletproof. But this is what Agile teaches us, is just enough for what we need right now. We will iterate and we will build incrementally. So this is where I was really intrigued when Elon Musk had these rules, specifically the one with subtraction. Because if we don't need something, we should remove it. And that's for the point in time we're looking at.
Why is that so hard for us, though?
I just think it comes down to human nature. Like, we want to do good work, and we feel like if something comes up in the future, and it gets, in a sense, I'm going to use air quotes here, right? Missed. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, this thing led us to lose thousands of dollars on the e-commerce site. It was one of the fields that I worked in previously in my career. I used to have a CIO that used to say, would tell its staff if something happened and customers, or if the company lost money because we undercharged a customer, the CIO, actually it was a CIO's assistant, would say, well, whose paycheck should we take this out of? You want to stifle innovation? You want to stifle creativity? That's what would do it. And then you would bet that every design we would put forth, we would take our time and we would over-engineer it. We would make it bulletproof, future-proof, but that would slow down the company because our competition was moving faster than we were.
You said something earlier, and just again now, about the importance of our work for its own sake. The way you put it was more like, we're doing it by the rules for the rules. When that happens, we lose sight of not only the real meaning of the work that we do, but also the freedom to choose how we serve an organization, how we can bring our best, our decision-making capability, our intuition, our passion, our desires, our experience, bringing all of those things to bear to make a job go well is important to people. What happens when people have no agency or control over their work and results, and they're simply trying to avoid punishments like the one you just described?
Yeah. And in the book, I call this the dependency web. And it's really learned helplessness. People stop trying to move fast because they know the system won't let them. And instead, they start gaming it, right? So shadow workflows, shadow IT departments. Again, when I go back to the beginning of my career, I remember that, I'm not going to name the major corporation, but the staff knew that the IT department was moving really slow, so they would have their own shadow IT department, and they were able to get away with it.
That happens a lot, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the downside of that is now you have these black ops just doing things wherever, and they're probably not conforming to architectures. They're not following any of the rules, but that team gets things done faster. So we're going to keep using them until the big slow machine can do better. But that's disastrous too.
Right. Because then you could still have issues pop up, and it could be even deadlier in a sense to the company. Information gets leaked out because processes are there for a reason. And as you and listeners know, the first value is individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and then Agile Manifesto. So processes are important. We're not saying don't do them, but there should be just enough. Again, going back to that theme of just enough in Agile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One thing I'll call out, and tell me if you agree here, when they talk about burnout, which is a big word right now, teams are burning out. What's on the mind of CIOs and CEOs even? Burnout. People just, for whatever reason, are leaving, but our churn is terrible. They're going on sick leave more often. They're struggling to keep up. They're struggling to be happy. It is difficult for them to keep the lines between work and their personal life separate because they're clearly not functioning well. And that is because I believe, and the studies back this up, this isn't just a thought of mine, that when people are burning out, the solution is not, well, here's a meditation app. You should breathe a little more. I mean, that stuff is important. I teach it sometimes in the Forge, but what people really need is the feeling like they're in control of their destiny. When you mention learned helplessness, that's a term from psychology in which it doesn't matter what I do. I'm getting the shock anyway. I'm not getting the cheese. I'm getting the poke. So I might as well do nothing. Might as well sit in the corner, face the wall, and just let the world pass me by. If we want people to burn out less, we need to give them more agency with less downside of making a wrong decision. Do you tend to agree with that?
Absolutely. And this is where in the closing chapters of the book, I talk about going from a shepherd style of leadership to a beekeeper. Now, I'm not the first one that came up with this. I've heard this metaphor before, but I think it's so powerful because, and to summarize it, in a shepherd, you have a group of sheep and you're basically keeping them within a confined space. And if they start wandering out, you rope them back in, et cetera, and you protect them from wolves. But in technology, innovation, we need leadership to think more of a beekeeper, where beekeepers don't make the honey, the bees do. But what's important is for the beekeepers to make sure the hive is healthy, and then that will allow the bees to make the honey.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we want leaders, and I make this case in the book, how you can go from a shepherd to more of a beekeeper. So one example is, always asking for status updates. Well, can we set up basically a cockpit or a dashboard where, as a leader, you get 90% of what you're looking for from that dashboard?
Let's dig into something, because Sanity at Scale has a front section where it talks about the hero and heroism problem, and then it gets into here's what you can do to start removing hero work, because it's an automatic tendency that I think comes from problems at scale. The title of your book, Sanity at Scale, indicates a really important problem, that this hero culture doesn't happen in 8-person teams or 10-person teams. It happens when you're trying to coordinate and standardize across thousands of people. That's where the difficulty tends to come in. So hero work is not because of the character trait of a given Agile coach or a given leader. It tends to happen naturally when people are like, we're late, we're in trouble, someone needs to fix it. Who will it be? And it's the person who's willing to throw in the extra hours, work extra late to solve it. You're saying we got to stop doing that. And then you go to say, here's how. So can you walk us through, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the things that you think are most instrumental in removing hero culture and replacing it with something that's far more sustainable?
Right. So I'd already talked about the leadership shift going from shepherd to beekeeper. There's backlog bankruptcy, which kind of ties into our earlier discussion on deleting, right? So I talk about a 6-month rule. There's no someday pile, just delete it. I talk about the value litmus test, right? Some questions that you ask before anything ends up on your backlog. And then there's prioritization, right? Actually coming up with a force rank of 1, 2, 3, and there's different ways to do it. And then there's designing for Slack. But I devote an entire chapter to making the invisible visible.
Yes.
This is probably my favorite chapter, and
Okay.
I almost wanted to write an entire book about it.
Then let's talk
But
about
this
that
is
one.
where, okay, great. So this is where, and this was a true story, again, from much earlier in my career, where we would meet and we would look at an Excel spreadsheet, and it was, we were trying to figure out if we were making progress. And if it wasn't your turn to speak, you kind of tuned out. You and your listeners probably are in this situation or are very familiar with it. And then this is where I went to the admin and I said, there's a empty wall in that conference room. Can you get me a couple whiteboards and have facilities put it up? And so we mounted these 2 whiteboards side by side and we mapped out the entire process. And we just created cards, and it wasn't anything digital. We were literally just creating columns on a whiteboard and using these index cards on a wall, and we would all get in the conference room. And that's what really led us to our how we would conduct our sessions, because you could easily see if something was stuck. I would stick a red magnet on it and say, this has been in this column. We had different steps in the workflow. And the red magnets would say, it's been here too long. And in 30 seconds, we knew exactly where to focus the conversation to make the most out of that time.
And any executive, at least anyone worth their salt, anyone who's truly interested in being agile, should be able to walk into that room and not ask for a dashboard, but rather look on the board and say, where are things clogged up? Where are things red? It's right there in front of you. And the movement of the work doesn't lie. All right. So if you have a card and it's not finished and it's been sitting there for 7 days and it's blocking other work, you're going to be 2 days from a sprint review and everything's going to be in the in progress column. And very few things are going to be in the done column. Clear indicator that something's up. Good time to ask questions. And that is so much less work than doing the work and moving the cards around on the board and then going and make a dashboard that reflects the exact same information but in a different flavor.
Right.
So that's making work visible, which is one of the core principles of Scrum and Agile in the first place, is that it should be easy to determine status at any given moment by simply looking at where the work sits. Are there any other methods that you would highly recommend to start removing hero work today?
So I'll go back to prioritization. Again, a force rank, there's a clear number 1, a clear number 2, a clear number 3. And that might lead to saying no to things. And this is where the challenge is. And actually, one of the things that I've figured out, I should give credit to another Scrum trainer that I know who basically, when in ChatGPT, put together the simulation of a very difficult stakeholder. And you can practice with this stakeholder on how to say no. And I've got to say, it really got my heart racing. Learning how to say no to difficult stakeholders who may threaten to escalate to leadership if they don't get their way, et cetera. But learning how to say the hard no, especially if you're a product owner on a team, it's a very important skill.
I agree. Can I dig a little deeper? Would you be able to share what you learned about how to say no? Because I think people out there probably struggle with that and would love to hear what works in your experience.
With prioritization, and maybe you and your listeners know about techniques like WSJF, weighted shortest job first, or if you can move things to be an objective conversation versus subjective. So as a leader, as a product owner, as a product manager, can you come up with a criteria that you can be transparent with everybody and say, when I'm helping my team with their backlog or their list of features, this is the information I'm going to collect. Does it impact revenue? Does it impact compliance? Does it impact, is it something that is something that will make us, I already said more money, but it's up to you. And this is the thing also, customize the criteria for what makes sense for your company and meeting the goals of the company. Companies use OKRs, all sorts of techniques. You come up with this criteria. And then again, and if you're using WSJF, your team can give some sort of rough t-shirt size estimate, et cetera, on how much effort. So we're looking for the biggest bang on the buck. So then, and I know it's not easy, but if you're getting into a conversation with a difficult stakeholder, that's the artifact you can bring up. And you can say, did I get the attributes correctly? Am I seeing that this is going to bring in an extra $3 million in revenue over the year? This is what my team says it's going to be to develop. It's going to take a quarter or maybe half a year. And getting into those discussions like why this can't be on the backlog. And maybe that leads to some sort of alternate option, maybe cutting things out of the feature, et cetera. And again, I'm not saying it's easy, but as a product owner, these are the conversations you want to have with your difficult stakeholders to help them understand why something cannot be on the backlog.
I have a question for you. How, in your opinion, because so many people are focused on AI right now, how is AI in any form making any of this worse or better in your opinion? Has this gotten worse in the last 2-3 years because of AI, or maybe the solution to the problem at all is hinging entirely on AI? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a blessing and a curse. I think AI is a blessing in terms it can generate backlog items. It can generate the code, not just the backlog items. I've done experiments on my own where I gave it a user story map and it creates the backlog. And then I said, give me the prompts to vibe code this. And it actually spits out a requirements document for lovable. Mm-hmm. And it can do it, super fast. But then it also, creates that, what am I really getting out of this? Am I just making slop faster? Mm-hmm. Am I really creating that? So this is where in the book it discuss about having a verification layer. Because if you don't check whether the AI, what it creates a sound, it's going to create digital scar tissue. It works today, but in 6 months from now, it could cause problems. So you still need that human in the loop. And I really do believe that we see how the internet helped with software distribution by moving things in the cloud. We're not shipping things on CD-ROMs anymore. This is an opportunity for all of us that are in development to spend more time in discovery. If we can generate the MVP faster now, that means we can spend more time with end users and stakeholders on what they actually want and nail that down sooner.
That makes perfect sense to me. So don't be afraid of AI. Embrace it. Just be careful. Don't use it to make critical decisions, but use it to help free up your time so that you can make the decisions and the important contributions that you want to make. You wrote this book for a reason. Everyone who writes a book has seen a struggle and would like to help fix it. And you mention, I like the word sanity at scale because it implies that as things get bigger and bigger, they get a little less predictable. And it's really hard to do your job and love your job when things are unpredictable all over the map and you can't control them. Why does this book matter now more than it ever has, in your opinion?
So we've gone through this time where we've gone through the internet. Now we've gone through Agile and scaling Agile. And I'm very upfront in the book. I'm not here to bash a framework or to say one framework is better than the other. They're all good, right? But now we're moving into this time where we have this opportunity where we can fix the process. Things are moving faster and faster. And if we don't be careful for what we talked about here, about the hero trap, about about the dependency web, about these other things, AI is giving us a false promise, right? The winners of this next decade, They're not going to have the most heroic people or the best AI in their product. They're going to be the ones with systems that are clear enough so that the ordinary people and the AI agents, however many there are, can do both the excellent work together. And so we're not going to be the firefighters as much. We're going to be more the fire marshals. Or strategic pilots, like we talked about earlier. That's where I'd like to see that as an industry, or a group of industries, we're heading towards in the future.
Do you think it's fair to say that if we burn a hero out, then obviously what are we left with? Now the whole thing doesn't work. And is that one of the reasons maybe how we got to where we're at with Agile, where the trust isn't there? We don't use the word Agile as much anymore. It's kind of a blown reputation, as I call it. Could that be the case?
Yeah. And even you've mentioned this before on your podcast, how one of the co-creators of Scrum has mentioned that Agile projects still fail.
Right.
So, why does that happen? We could probably spend another podcast on that. But I think you hit on the case, right? At the end of the day, we're still people. And we need to work together as people. And now we have to work with AI agents as well.
Yeah.
So scaling an organization is more about people, not about the frameworks. I mean, frameworks are important because it's just like if you play a sport or if you're in a league, right? If it's a baseball league or look at the World Cup, right? We're all following rules and teams are playing each other and there's going to be a champion and that's all great. But at the end of the day, how are we protecting our most important asset? That's our people. And then how do we get to communicate and collaborate and coordinate together so that we can hit that promise of agility, which is, I see something is happening, our competitor is beating us, let's change direction, and it's not creating all this chaos in the background. We can change direction very quickly, very cleanly, and beat the competition.
Dave, since we work together in Forge Genesis, I'm a fan of your work because you are a people person. You're a humanist. And for team leaders that believe the same thing, that it's all fine and good to have Agile and to do it well, but if we burn people out in the process of doing it, then this is no fun. And that's not why we came here. I think Agile people are impact people. They want to help. They want to help the bottom line, but they also want to leave the kind of footprint where they made work better for people. Before we go into where can you get the book and so on, who would you say this book is for? Who should run out and buy this? Because this is very prescriptive. It says, here's a problem. If you agree, here's how you go about fixing the problem. And you give us like 10 different ways to approach it. But who should read this immediately? Who will look at this and say, yes, I need this. This is happening to me. I want to be part of the solution.
I would say there's two groups of people. One, if you're an Agilist, whether that's Scrum Master, product owner, any Agile role, and you've been through these Agile transformations and you're still not seeing the promise or the results that you thought or the company thought you were going to get, I would say this is the book for you. If you are a leader who helped implement an Agile transformation, and same thing, you're looking at this and you're saying, I don't think we were quite there. We didn't get what we thought we were going to get with transformation and Agile. This book is for you as well.
And don't forget this, it's right in the Agile principles that sustainable work, whatever we design, yes, however we do it, if we can't do it indefinitely without blowing up, we're doing it wrong. You're still not fully agile. And if that's important to you, if you believe that, and you know that you're not really hitting that requirement, you can't just ignore it. You can't just put the principles down and say, well, there's 12. I've kind of nailed 7 of them. That's got to be good enough, right? That's a start. But if you're looking for continuous improvement, you have to be looking at sustainable pace. And I think this book, Sanity at Scale, does exactly that. Dave, where can they find it?
So it's on Amazon right now. It's available for a Kindle download as well as a paperback. And you can just search on Sanity at Scale, or if you want to go to my website, betterwaysofworking.com, it's right there on the landing page, and you'll get a link to Amazon as well. And I've got free resources, and my other books are there if you visit my website. So please visit.
That's fantastic. Dave, it's a real, first of all, congratulations on the book. I'm proud of you, like I said, for building it. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And it's pretty crisp, too. I think it comes in under 100 pages. Am I right?
Yeah, I wrote a short book. I always write short books because I'm a busy person, and it's like, just get to the point. I never finish long books anyway. So this is something you can sit in one sitting, and I get to the point. And Chris, I want to thank you. You've helped me along this journey with Forge Genesis and your support over the years and your podcast. Thank you for all the encouragement and doing what you do. Thank you, Chris.
Of course, you're doing awesome, my friend. I'm so happy to see you out there doing it and putting things out where people can get a hold of it and experience your work and benefit from it. So thank you for writing this book, Dave. I'm going to have all the links in the show notes below. My friend, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you take a chance to meet Dave virtually. So go in and check out his website, check out his work. Most importantly, grab yourself a copy of this book. I think it's an important one in any Agilist's library. I hope to see you next time, and until then, stay badass.